Is Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. And today on The View, we talked about the continued political fallout from Trump's visit to Arlington National Cemetery and the growing number of um, defectors from his camp and endorsements for Harris and um, Walz. Uh, I'm I'm glad to see that this Arlington story has some legs and people like something is finally kind of sticking to him. Um, the wild disrespect that it shows to all of our military service members, past, present, and future, um, and just for the military in general, and specifically for the sacrifice that military people make for the country. So it's nice to see that have some legs because the the media just doesn't seem to have a very long memory about all of his transgressions. He's being sentenced for his federal convictions in 2 weeks. Um, that could have an impact on the race, but nobody's bringing that up. And we've all forgotten clearly that age or cognitive ability has any bearing on the race because, it's not it was only apparently a problem for Biden. It's not a problem for the Republicans, even though the man is the oldest person to ever run for president and is clearly unwell. But at least there's something that is sticking. And all of those people that call themselves patriots and are so supportive of the military have to start questioning themselves when the army itself is like, dude, you fucked up. And I really wish the army would press charges against him, but apparently that's not happening. Um, but in an interesting twist, Senator John McCain's son, Jimmy, who is of some rank in the military, I don't remember. Um, I probably should know what all those ranks are and what order they are, but I don't. I want to say he's some sort of lieutenant, but there's like 146 different kinds of lieutenants, so I don't know what that means. Um, but he like wholeheartedly endorsed Harris and Walz, saying that they represent the values that he thinks will take America forward and do good things for the country. Um, and that's huge, especially in a swing state like Arizona, where the McCain name means something. Now, his sister, the namesake of this particular YouTube channel, did the other day put on social media that she does not like or trust Tim Walz, and no amount of histrionic um, wailing will convince her otherwise. And I'm like, go take your smelling salts. Um, she's allowed to dislike whoever she wants. Well, that's fine. You have terrible judgment. I mean, clearly, look who you married, and nobody cares, Megan. Nobody cares. And I don't know. I love it when she makes those kind of proclamations. No amount of history on it. Blah, blah, blah. Like, well, tell it to the people who are trying to convince you. Nobody gives a flying fuck what you like. But if you want to continue to not call out the man who denigrated your father's memory and was very specifically not invited as the president of the United States to his funeral, if you still want to, sort of kowtow and treat with baby gloves that dude who you used to say was an existential threat to democracy, you go ahead and do that, Megan. You just go ahead and be your little hypocritical self because you're very good at it. But her brother, uh, showed some balls, which is nice to see. Um, it was very interesting. I thought Sarah Haynes actually had a delightfully cogent, coherent, and long-winded thought about the um, dishonor that Trump showed to service members by agreeing to this event in Arlington National Cemetery. Um, Her point being, it was one family that invited them, but they don't really have the right to do that as a single family. And the cemetery told the campaign, no, you're not allowed to do it, but they did it anyway, to the point where someone was shoved out of the way. And even if it was a private event, that the family asked for, Trump wasn't allowed to have cameras there on his own and then use that footage in a campaign ad. Like with every step, he did something even further and further wrong. And her analogy was if it was a September 11th surviving family member who said, go ahead and swim in the memorial pool in at the Trade Center, that doesn't mean it's okay to do. And I thought that was like good for you. Like she doesn't always make the most sense, and she's usually kind of mealy mouthed and wishy washy and all that whole independent both sides bullshit. And I liked that she was sort of strong in the issue and made a good point and made a great analogy. On the other hand, Amy Alyssa Farrah Griffin, of course, can't just wrap her head around it, and she says, "I won't tell people to vote for Harris Walz." And goes into this whole like it's not just about character, which I thought was interesting that whoever brought it up, that somebody said that this is just comes down to character. It's always been about character. And when Amy Alyssa Farrah Griffin says, well, it's also about policy, and then she starts listing off all of the Trump policies that are not Republican or not conservative, and it's like, okay, so these are your two choices, dum dum. And then she says, well, I'm not going to tell people to vote for Harris Walz, but I am going to tell people not to vote for Donald Trump. So you're literally going to tell people you're better off to not exercise your right to vote than to actually vote with your conscience and ensure that the person that you don't want in charge and the people that he's going to appoint in charge by voting for a party you've never voted for before, some arbitrary line you've made in the sand. That's a better choice. Just don't participate. Because there are no other choices to vote for. And if you say Jill Stein, you can go to hell. Like, I mean, that's just fucking stupid. So it just, I thought that whole thing is interesting. And it's really, this whole thing is this whole run up to the end of the election. I just really, I think, pointing out her hypocrisy and her inability to deal with like actual in life resolution and consequence. She's so stuck in her policy wonk head that she isn't thinking at all about you know actual things that matter to you in a practical sense. And I think that's the biggest problem with the Republican Party in general is that they are so off in the weeds and stuck on talking points and optics and the politics of it all, that they're not even considering what the consequences are for real life people and the people that they want to vote for them. And I like that is actually starting to come into the forefront. I feel like Kamala and Tim are taking all of that rhetoric bullshit and all of the sort of the poison pills that the GOP and the press like to focus on, and being like, fuck that, we're going to talk about the people and we're going to talk to the people, and we're going to talk about what we're going to do for them, and the rest of this bullshit doesn't matter. And it's so refreshing, and I hope that is sort of a bellwether for how we can move politics forward. I also hope that this shortened campaign time for the Harris Walz ticket brings some sort of bell for the DNC to be like, hey, maybe we could have a shorter primary system. Maybe we don't need to spend 9 months the year before the election in Iowa and New Hampshire just to try to make sure that at the start of this whole thing, we get some momentum, which is, a year ahead of time. Maybe we could do this in a more condensed fashion. So we've got a lot of stuff we got to do first. We actually have to get them elected. We have to get through the court cases that they're going to try to, right? We have to get the votes certified. We have to get them inaugurated. It's not just the road to November 5th. It's the road all the way to January 5th. So, but these are the things that come up for me. And the one guest on The View today was Katanji Brown Jackson. And she's lovely. I think she's super smart. I thought Whippy said it the best. Not only are you so fair and civic minded and smart and good at your job, and understand the legal ramifications of and political ramifications of what your job is, but you're also just a nice person. I'm really like, it's really nice we're having this sort of resurgence of just nice people. That's great. Let's have more of that, please. Let's celebrate people who are reasonable and don't want to just get in the mud. I know that the name of this channel is mean spirited, but you still have to call out the dum dums when you see them. Um, and one more thing, it was funny. Her book is called Lovely One because that's what her name means. Katanji means lovely one. And on our local news last night, they were doing a teaser for this interview on The View, and he kept stumbling on her name. And then he announced the news guy announced the title of her book is Lonely One, which got corrected and he fixed it. But I just thought, well, yeah, as the only Black woman on the Supreme Court and probably the first Black woman in everywhere she's been in her career, that Lonely One is kind of a fitting title, but it's not the right title because you know what, she is lovely.